This is what I tell them, and this is what I would tell anybody. If you don't explain, your resume might go right into the recycling pile because there's some weird gap on your resume, and maybe it was a health issue, or maybe you got fired, but why? This is a volatile industry. We all know it. So don't be shy. And if you can get ahead of any of those issues, then you're giving someone a chance to ask you about it instead of just put you in the recycling pile and say, there's enough that doesn't add up here. I don't want to deal with it.
Welcome to Leadership on the Links, the podcast that showcases innovators in golf course management and the issues they face. I'm your host, Tyler Bloom. In Leadership on the Links, you hear the stories of people shaping the industry from their first swing to their dream match. You feel like you're on the course playing with your most inspiring colleagues, having great conversations, digging into insights and sharing a few laughs. Our industry is changing. As a leader, you need to keep up on everything from trends to technology to best practices. Together, we'll continue to build world-class clubs and teams. Let's get to it. Enjoy.
All right. Well, appreciate you joining me today on our podcast, Leadership on the Links. And just to kind of kick this off for our audience of people who are listening in, why don't you give us a brief background on yourself and how you've intersected with the golf industry? It's a unique perspective than maybe some of our other guests.
Right. Sure, Tyler. Thank you for having me. So I'm Jacqueline Severidt. I am the founder of Severidt Consulting. And I've been consulting for longer than that's not true. I've probably actually been working in the golf industry longer than I've been consulting, but it was by accident. So I think that's maybe the interesting part. So I'm married to a golf course superintendent. I've spent 20 summers with him already. Anybody who is married to a superintendent knows, you have to be really independent. They're gone a lot. They might be, fixing irrigation at 1:30 in the morning, and, other people would think your husband's having an affair, but it's just golf. So, there's been some interesting things along the way, but I do professional portfolios for the industry, and I started by accident by preparing my husband for his first superintendent's job. And from there, his mentors started asking me for their help, and then their friends, and I told their friends I would not do theirs until Ryan got his big job, his final job, which, we hope he's at now. And after that, it kind of broke open the floodgates and people started coming to me. I've only gotten referrals. I've never advertised myself. Probably was about a week ago that I finally updated my LinkedIn to say I even do this in the industry. So all of my work has come from word of mouth.
Yeah, so that sounds very similar. I know that pathway of just referral based, which is typically the best, right?
Yeah, it's fit when that happens. You're in the right thing because it was natural.
Okay, so what did you do, or what do you do in your real world, practical day-to-day job outside of this? And we'll get into this bigger hobby here soon, but it kind of gives perspective on that.
Yeah, so I've been working in the architectural and engineering industry for about the same amount of time, 20 years, since, I haven't graduated college quite that long ago, but almost. And in that industry, my job is to do everything strategically before someone signs a multi-million-dollar contract on a new science building or anything commercial, basically. I didn't do residential. But essentially, what I do for individuals, I was doing for firms in this way. And so when I morphed it into the golf industry, I basically just took the strategy I was doing for businesses and broke it down for it to work for an individual. So I offer portfolio services, strategy. I've helped people with their presentations. I've designed presentations, coaching them through the way. I have some clients that I'll work with. Maybe they have it they know someone's going to retire in a year and a half, and they'll ping me and they'll say, "Okay, this is the job down the line I'm looking at." And we literally touch base off and on for a year and a half, coaching them, getting them ready, looking at holes, what their current bosses may have not passed down to them yet, like budgeting or capital improvement projects, or things that they will need for the next job that they haven't had experience. And there's an opportunity for them to gain that experience before they go after the job. Other times, depending on the client, sometimes people will text or email me and we don't even have a phone call, but I can get all the information I need from their resumes and cover letters and then just asking questions because I often don't know these people, especially at this point. So rather than like someone who can kind of fill in the holes in their heads with other people's experience, I can't do that because I don't know them. So I'm the perfect person, a third party to look at what they are, offering and say, this doesn't make sense, or there's a hole here. We need to tie this up. We need to communicate this better. We need to position you in a different way. And I think that's one of the keys to success.
So I find it fascinating. And I think in this industry, whether it's in grounds, whether it's in golf, culinary, whatever, I feel like hands-on learning the job, right, is such a critical thing. And in some ways, like as you build out like this side hustle, it's really been learned on the job, right? It's not like you woke up one day and said, you know what, I'm going to go pursue being like this professional portfolio resume.
Absolutely.
It just kind of came in. So walk me through a little bit as you sort of like started doing this. And obviously you spoke about Ryan and kind of working with him. But what
Right.
were some of the common themes that you would see, with resumes, portfolios that you were like, I think I can help this person?
Yeah. Well, at this point, after doing this for so many years, some of the common things are like metrics. I'm a marketer by trade, but I know to be a successful marketer, you turn everything you can into numbers because you need to prove to whoever your client is that you've got the results that they want. And a lot of individuals aren't thinking about that. They just said, oh, I did this or I did that, or I have experienced this. Well, how? Why? How much, how many man hours did you save? What did you shave off the capital budget? Was it on time? I mean, there's so many questions that, going through their resume I can get for them. And then like connections points as well. I think it's really important, like when people go after jobs, to like have a connection to the club, like figure it out. Is it a hometown? Do you know someone there? Like, is this where your family wants to move long term? Tell the club why you're there, not just for the job, but like why it fits you, why you're there, maybe not forever, but how you can help them solve their problems. I don't know. There's so much, but trying to think what else. With Ryan, because you kind of asked me two questions. So that's part of it. But the first thing you asked me is, like how I kind of got into this. Like I said I was doing it, but when Ryan got his first superintendent's job, I went with him to the interview, and it was an overnight interview. And this is probably going to resonate with a lot of clients or people listening because it's the same process. It was kind of like a 2-day thing. We went down, he toured the course. We had a dinner with the GM and the family that night. And then the next morning was the interview. So there was like no dead time. What I was doing in the background is like I had already prepared a presentation for him. And so when he was out on the golf course taking pictures, doing his walkthrough, he was sending them to my phone. And then I was in the like essential the cabins, that were on property, doing his presentation, like uploading them and, getting everything in place. And so by the time you got into the interview the next day, the GM said, how did you do this? Like, I was with you all these hours. Like, how in the world do you have this? I know those are pictures you took yesterday, and so that's kind of how it started. And then we were in Tennessee for about 9 years. And for at least half that time, we were looking for his next job. So I got a lot of practice. There were so many jobs he went after. And it's a hard industry. Sometimes you're not ready. You don't have the experience. Sometimes it's just you have no connections. There's a lot going on, but I got a lot of practice of like, how do we circle this drain? And how do we, clutch it?
Yeah, I can only imagine. I know that. I know the feeling from.
Personal, right? I mean, I'm sure you did the same.
Yeah, it's really hard to turn that kind of stuff around, and some of these processes become so elaborate where they're asking for, feels like they're asking for your blood, in an interview
Oh, and
process, you know,
yes.
so having somebody like you kind of in the back, behind the scenes, would be a great avenue or asset to have. So that's the secret sauce for Ryan has been having you're doing all the dirty work for him.
Yeah, exactly.
So like as you evolved from Ryan to other friends, peers, things of that nature, like how did that, if you don't mind asking, like how did that come about that they said, Jacqueline, you're the person that we need to use helping us?
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. I don't know if I know the answer to that, but I can tell you from my perspective how it happened. Like literally, I think his mentor was my next client. And obviously, his best friends in the industry knew and had seen his portfolio because of the jobs he was going after. And like I said, like I mentioned before, I told his like best friend, like, I'm not going to do your until Ryan gets his job. But his mentor, of course, was like applying for different jobs. And so um, I did it for him. And at this time, I didn't have a checklist for clients. I mean, it was a little bit of a messier process because I hadn't honed it in. I wasn't expecting to do this. So I was kind of like, oh, can I have a picture? Can I have your signature? Okay, let's like backtrack here. And at this point, it's, a higher level service I offer because I have so much practice and I know exactly the process. But back then, yeah, it was his mentor and then like another boss of his. And then it kind of rolled out to some of their friends and peers in the industry. And at this point, that tier of professional, they pretty much are probably where they are going to retire. Most of it, like we're in our 40s, like I just turned 40. Most of these people are at that point where they're maybe they're not looking for another job. And so I thought for a while it would be done. I mean, I didn't expect to continue doing this. It was just like whoever called me. But like sure enough, every golf season ends and I get several people, who ping me and it's just referrals, like I said. And so at this point I don't really know anybody, know the people personally that are contacting me. But I will say the industry I love working with the culture of this industry. All my clients have like paid on time, they're respectful, they're funny, they have good personalities, like I haven't had a bad client yet. So that's probably why I continue doing it.
Well, you're fortunately to work with one of the top industry networks in the country. So
Absolutely.
they definitely like to have their fun, which, I think keeps them somewhat sane in a
Mhm.
crazy industry as this can be. You see, yeah, there's a lot of pressure, and I don't know if you're comfortable going down that road, but I always find it's interesting when we get the opportunity to engage with, whether it's club leaders, general managers, board members. I always really do try to communicate and educate about the work life component, right? We just did an industry study. We had over 250 respondents. And one of the questions that was asked was, are you trying to improve your work-life balance, or what steps are you taking? 80% of the people said yes, they're trying to improve, which to me, it's an underlying tone in this industry. And unfortunately, I think, during COVID really kind of reemphasized the importance of work-life balance, especially for the executives.
Mhm.
They're under so much pressure to perform in an uncontrollable environment, oftentimes changing boards, changing agendas, changing strategies, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's such a key thing for our company as a whole to really not necessarily devalue the importance of work ethic or anything like that, but it's just taking conscious steps towards integrating work life. So, from your perspective, having, lived it, like you said, the last 20 years, like
Right.
what would you say to that club leader, club manager, board rep, what your observations have been?
Just as far as being a wife of a superintendent, like, I mean, people talk about golf widows, and this is a little bit different take on it because they're not golfing all the time, they're working. But I do feel just from a personal perspective, like, there's 7 months out of the year, 5 to 6 for sure, that every wife in this industry is on her own for the most part. Because especially if you have one of the roles that you're working outside, like my husband Ryan, like he's waking up at 4:30 a.m. several summer mornings. He may get home at a decent time for like most of the workforce, but he's so tired because he's been, he's been outside in the heat all day, managing like 30 different things in his head. And so he's just exhausted. He doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to, I mean, he's such a good father. I mean, he engages with the kids, that kind of thing. But as far as like from a wife's standpoint, there's not much left. And we call it, just kind of like we're like, well, it's August, it's late July. And so we like know this every single year. Like the beginning of the summer is pretty easy, but then you hit like late July, August, and it's, we're just two ships passing through the night doing our best. And then you get to October and we're in the mid-Atlantic, right? So we're in Washington, D.C. So it's humid and hot through October. So some years it's like October, November before we're really like connecting again. And especially this probably resonates with you because you have little kids. Youngest is he's turning 6 next week. And then we have a 7-year-old. And so for the last, 5, 6, 7 years, it's been a whole different situation at home. And yeah, tactically, I mean, we've had to organize ourselves a lot better because there's more there. It used to be that I was just alone, but now I have like so much more responsibility in the home. And it's a lot of just understanding. I understand his career and I'm a huge advocate for his career. I love the industry. I love the people. So it's really easy for me to stay committed. I don't know if everybody could say that, but for me and for a lot of his peers, I think the wives all have their own thing they're doing and their own lives, but we love our husbands. There it is. You used to it.
I appreciate that. I mean, when I stepped out of being a superintendent, and I know this isn't necessarily the purpose of our chat here, but
Yeah, no, it's interesting though, right? For us at least.
it's a real thing that I think a lot of people are dealing with in the industry. And when I stepped away from being a superintendent, I finally recognized like the sacrifice that what my wife was doing feels like 12 months out of the year. It's no
Yeah.
longer 5 to 7 months; it's 12 months out.
Well, the
You know,
job is full time. It's just, are you doing 2 or 3 jobs or are you doing 1?
yeah.
That's what to compare it to.
And we had our second kid at the time, Sienna, and it was a real thing to understand, like, there's a lot of responsibility on the home front. Make sure schedules are aligned, meals are prepped for school, they're getting out to the bus. Fortunately now, like, that's kind of my morning responsibilities, which it's not a responsibility, like, I love doing it. It's a lot of fun, but that's a piece that I think a lot of people can miss being a superintendent, and in the club industry is some of those things. Yeah, kudos to you because it takes a lot of work, that organization of things and just communication. It's a constant piece,
Mhm.
to make things work.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this time of year, like this morning, Ryan in his home, he did the lunches, he put everything in their backpacks, he got to kiss them goodbye before they got to the bus stop, but that is like 3, 4 months out of the year, something like that, and then he's just gone. So, I think for families, it's like the whiplash, like, you can hardly get into a routine because it's changing, which I appreciate. I'm always, the down season is great. So there is that relief. There's other careers that maybe don't have that. So, that's like a understanding point. But yeah, it's tough, but here we are and we love our lives.
Yeah, well, I one thing I do miss, unfortunately, well, I miss, but I'm fortunate to have kind of found myself in a nice little niche that we still get to benefit from the things that the club industry does provide, right? So you're
Oh
going
my gosh.
to
Yeah.
to go to Phoenix, get to meet great people, get to eat some great food at some awesome places, right? Fortunately, at the place that Ryan's at, they've hosted major events. So you're getting to see really highly skilled golfers. If golf is really for you, like it's a really unique industry as a whole. And I imagine some of like those like heartfelt things that you just described actually makes you more valuable for what you're doing and helping clients, achieve their job. I imagine like that is a different perspective than just being a professional resume writer or
Oh yeah.
like, there's actually an emotional tie to it.
No, I mean, absolutely. Like, my favorite thing is that I I'm helping people achieve their dream jobs. Like, I know that they have to go interview, they have to do the work themselves, but the fact that I get to be a part of it, and we've done this for Ryan, like, he's at Woodmont now, and he absolutely loves it. We love it here. I mean, we've finally gotten, to where we wanna be, and it was a long process, like, on both of our ends with both of our careers. I mean, when we moved to Tennessee, I was lucky enough to ask my boss in 2010 if I could telecommute because I still wanted to do my work, but I had to move. So there's a lot of sacrifices that every family is making along the way, and you're right. Like, I do know about those, and that's why I love it so much. Like I said, I didn't mean to fall into this industry, but it it means more to me than just like writing resumes or whatever. I think I can eke out a lot more passion and understanding than other people would be able to, because my perspective, like I live in one of those homes that of the people, of my clients.
So some tactical things that, if you were given anybody that's in this industry some tactical suggestions or strategies just from a resume standpoint or portfolio. I know you talked about some of the considerations, but is there any, let's say, what's your top three things that you think candidates should be looking to do with their materials to make them stand out?
Yeah. One thing that not a lot of people do that would be great to get out in front of is save compliments. When, maybe you hosted a tournament and you got some handwritten notes or a couple emails of appreciation, maybe news articles or podcasts or that kind of thing. But those touch points where people are really saying like, wow, you went above and beyond this week or this month or this year. Like we had all of these, projects or tournaments or whatever. A standard reference is one thing, and everybody has to ask for those reference letters, and you might have two or three of them. But so like in my portfolio, is a section I like to include is client accolades. And so in the back, we have like these series of emails or note cards, or if, the client has collected them. And I think that stands out a lot because it's showing like it's beyond like, this is what I'm expected to show you. This is actually what people think of me, like on the job. These are the people who have loved me and didn't just have to write a reference letter. So that's one. The second thing, and I touched on it a little bit, is just the metrics. I think there's not ever a time, I believe I can say there's not ever a time I work with a client that I don't ask for more metrics, that I don't say, what was the growth on this? What was, just trying, how much did you save? Like, did you grow your department? Did you grow your, like, if you're a tennis pro, like, did you start a new program? Did you design a checklist? Did you make some process more efficient? All of these things, almost everybody has something like that they've done, but they might not like think about it. And if we can not only communicate it, but communicate it with results, that's going to show that you're ready for that next position. So those are two things. Be yourself and be comfortable talking about yourself, which that's another thing that I feel like I coach my client through. Like so many times I'm like, okay, I need a headshot. And they're like, I don't want to show a picture of myself. But research has shown the more touch points people have with you, the more they're going to like you, regardless of your likability. And so I try to take the masks off people. Who are you really? Sometimes in my portfolios, I'll also put like personal information. Okay. Do you have a wife and kids? Do you have dogs, cats? Like, what do you like to do other than golfing? Like let people know who you are, because they don't want to work with someone they don't like. But, you want to hire someone that not only can do the job, but that you don't mind being around for 12 hours a day, 3 months out of the year.
So, wow, we could take this in a bunch of different directions. So
Yeah, go for it.
that last piece resonates with me so
Mhm.
much because on our side, on the interview process, we see
Mm.
kids being too scripted and they're not genuine, they're not authentic, and they're trying to put their best foot forward. They're better off just having a natural conversation about who they are, because that's what I want. I want the real, authentic person on the other side of this camera. I don't want, some AI robot, and neither does a committee, neither does their coworkers. They want to see a genuine person, good, bad, and different. Oftentimes I find candidates are afraid to talk about what their weaknesses are, um,
Yeah.
what some of their mistakes have been. But honestly, that to me shows growth. I mean, I'm laughing thinking of you talking about your journey, and I think I didn't go to school to become a recruiter. I didn't go to
Yeah.
school to be
No.
an HR professional, right? It came from like the pain and frustration I dealt with as a golf course superintendent, and then recognize that, oh my gosh, my other peers are dealing with the same issue.
Yeah.
Maybe
Hmm.
maybe I can create a solution that helps other people, right? So it's the same kind of thing. And as you develop those mistakes and failures that I've made, I'm very forthright of telling even some of our newest clients, like, hey, this is our process, but this is what it's taken to get here. It's taken 3.5 years of mistakes. No, it's taken a couple bad hires. It's taken, even as a superintendent myself, struggling to find people. Like it's all that packaged into what we offer now. It's evolved, right? So hopefully we're not allowing you to have the same mistakes we did. But the other side of it is like being confident to tell that story.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that's a really nice thing that you said about that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that, and I've had a couple clients this fall that they've had extenuating circumstances. I It's not my business to pry, but it is my business to ask them to be brave enough to explain. And this is what I tell them, and this is what I would tell anybody. If you don't explain, your resume might go right into the recycling pile because there's some weird gap on your resume, and maybe it was a health issue, or like maybe you got fired, but why? I mean, this is a volatile industry. We all know it. So don't be shy. Like you're saying, like, just communicate. And if you can get ahead of any of those issues, then you're giving someone a chance to ask you about it instead of just, put you in their recycling pile and say, there's enough that doesn't add up here. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think you have the power. You're not relinquishing the power and control to somebody else to fabricate some narrative.
Exactly.
You have the ability
Yeah.
to tell the story, and I've had a few of those, situations throughout my entire career. If you let things out there and,
Mhm.
and allow some doubt, then they're going to construct the narrative for you, and
Mhm.
you have no control over it. The other piece that you talked about with authenticity and likability and having those touch points, where
Right.
we work with a group called Brand Builders Group, and they're based in Nashville, and they have so many really awesome different ways to get you in front of people to become kind of the go-to expert, right? And it's based off their experience working with personal brands, right? And your resume, your cover letter, your interview process is really a way for you to distinguish and talk about who you are, what your personal brand represents, right?
Mhm.
And they have a saying that you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were, right? And so
Right. Yeah.
as you
Mhm.
think about constructing your materials, like think about that person you were 3, 4, 5 years ago. Hey,
Mhm.
if I could have went back and done it differently, now having my experience, I would have done it this way. So I think some of the things that you're doing kind of do touch on like that personal brand component, and helping people kind of tell their story, a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, personally, I even said when I started this, I wasn't as organized. I wasn't as good as I am now at it. And in my 20s, I had um a mentor. He was the CEO of the company that I was working for, and he allowed me to make mistakes. He got me in front of, I would do presentations. I would critique his presentations. He's the one that allowed me to telecommute and paid for my MBA and, so many things. But he allowed me to be in rooms that probably a young 20-year-old, 23, 24, wouldn't have usually been able to be in. But he respected my business mind and he wanted to um, allow growth opportunities for me. But I didn't do everything perfectly. Nobody has. And a lot of us do have um, mistakes in our past, but that doesn't mean that you can't, like you're saying, grow through them, learn, and then never make them again and help someone else not make them sooner than maybe you learned.
Kind of as you work with clients through the interview process, right? So now they got their foot in the door. They're going to be interviewing, whether it's an initial interview, second interview, final interview. What do you see? Like, what's your role been, or what are things that you've been able to help clients kind of continue that momentum, each step of the process?
Well, I think that the more you work with me or work with a coach like this, the better you get, the more confident you get, the more familiar even with your own skill set and how to communicate that skill set you get. So, do you think like every interview you have, like every round, people get better and better? So, like some of the longer term clients I've had, I have a really good track record. And I know it's because of the people who come to me, right? So, a lot of people do get the first job they're going after, or they get the one that they were, looking for, or they come back to me after a few years and they're looking for that next step or to get back into an area, whatever it may be. But I do see the confidence grow um, each time we work together, we fine tune like another piece of it. And I feel like going through this process with like an expert like myself, someone objective from, just your family and friends, you communicate better and you just present yourself more fully because you understand your brand. You understand your brand. So I'm positioning people and making them understand their brand. And then they go in and they know what they have to offer instead of just saying like, well, I sort of did this and I did this. Didn't you see that on my resume? I wrote a bullet point about it. Instead, they're just more fully prepared.
So I'm assuming you're giving people a framework, something that they can kind of document so they have some talking points going into those interviews.
Done. I mean, no, I've done that a little bit, but not, I mean, obviously with Ryan, like with certain clients, with some of them, but no, I don't have a framework, but I think like what ends up happening naturally is just like through the back and forth, like whatever they give me, they've got these rough resumes that maybe they had when they were 20, and then they're like, how we all do it, right? Something has to be created, but through the back and forth, it's like, at least in my mind, but I can see it through theirs too with the gaps they're filling in from my questions. Like I ask a question and they're like fleshing it out. It's like, it's a more natural process, I guess is what I'm saying, than like having a formal checklist, in that regard. But I have one that I present to them, if you will, as we go through developing their materials. And through that process, they are growing in understanding their brand. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's very personalized.
Yeah.
I have found often our best search projects is when you have that kind of engagement. We may have a formula or some things we want to have, but a lot of times our search projects, they come through organic relationship and that back and forth feedback. It's an engaged process. It's not a boilerplate copy. It's very personalized.
Right. I mean, each client that comes to me has a different story. They're different people. So I'm positioning, and the job is different as well. And why the last person left that job is different. If we know some of that, like if I know why a superintendent or a golf pro or, whatever job we're going after, did someone retire? Did someone get pushed out? Like, is the membership difficult to work with? I don't know. But if we can answer some of those questions, then I can position someone better, or maybe they'll find out that's not the job for them. Because I think it's really important for these clients to go into the interview knowing that, like, keep your power, like know what you present and know who you are. And this might not be a best fit. I don't know if you know this, but in our history, I won't name a golf club name, but like Ryan had what we thought was going to be his dream job, and he ended up turning it down in the end. And it was because the final offer did not fit our family the way we thought it was going to be. We wanted it to be the life job, and it ended up looking like it was going to be a stepping stone job, and we had to turn it down. And that was really hard. But, and then we went like 4 or 5 years until we're here with the Woodmont job. So it wasn't easy. And you're stepping into the unknown, but like know who you are and what you bring to the table enough not to just like give someone your power and even accept a job that is not a fit in your gut.
Man, some pretty good coaching right there. So that I really, really appreciate that. And I found myself sometimes trying to get out of a job
Uh-huh.
and I
Yeah.
would take almost anything or apply to anything. And that comes out in an interview process. It comes out like if you're just not all in,
Mhm.
even if it's 1% that you're not all in, it's going to show itself in the job. You're not
Mhm.
going to bring that sort of passion and that sort of intestinal fortitude, as one of my mentors called it, to bring it every day. And this is an industry you got to bring it. You got to bring it every day.
Well, and as a wife, I would say like your family has to bring it too. Superintendents or golf pros or whoever we're talking about, this industry, the club industry, people move around all the time. So, like, a lot of times you're moving a family, and a lot of times a spouse has a job that she has to leave or he has to leave. And there's a lot of that. So, when we've been all in, like in Tennessee and also here, I made sure that the employers knew that I was all in, that I was ready, that I was preparing. When Ryan was interviewing in Tennessee, I remember taking that mentor I talked about. I closed my office door and I said, Mike, Ryan's interviewing. I think it's going to go well. I want to put a bug in your ear about, telecommuting 6 hours away when nobody is doing this in 2010. Then I was able to tell, uh, the golf club in Tennessee, listen, I'm putting my ducks in a row too. Like, we want this.
I am just sitting here laughing, thinking back to a trip I made, actually 2 jobs I interviewed for, and I was on the road going there knowing that my wife wasn't all in.
Yeah, I'm laughing because
Yeah, and I remember though when we made the decision or like when the thought process came in our head about moving home to where we're at now in central Pennsylvania, both sets of parents around 2 kids, and again, this is crazy. This happened June 2020, right in the heart of the pandemic to say, "Hey, I'm gonna start a business." And my wife was like, "Yes, we're doing this." And I was like, "Oh, this is a different tone than some of the other opportunities that presented themselves." So I fully understand that. And no, I really appreciate that. I go back to a comment you made that I find very, I don't know, enriching, enlightening, whatever you want to call it, but about being a coach. And I find that in our world that we're, the space we're in right now, oftentimes we're as much of a coach as we are talent advisory recruiter.
yeah,
I
right.
think, and I think it's an interesting thing because this industry, for the most part, is very, very prideful. Oftentimes we'll seek out help, but oftentimes they don't seek out for help in certain areas that an executive coach, somebody like yourself, could help them. And I thought your perspectives on what and how you help clients through a process is really in the form of coaching.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's an interesting observation for me as well, because I give clients, like, after I do my portfolios, I give them every single document in any format they can imagine. I'm not like a gatekeeper because I know my value is not in editing and designing. Like, they can hire someone much less expensive to do those pieces of it. Go ahead. If you don't want to hire me again, you have everything you need because I want people to be successful. What I do is so much beyond that. I believe that, like a cover letter, for instance, like anybody can write a cover letter in an hour, right? A lot of times I'm spending like 3 or 4 hours just editing what they've already written. I take it really the positioning really seriously and the connecting to the actual job that they're going after. A lot of times, even so say we wrote an amazing cover letter and they're going after their next job, I'm still spending another hour, hour and a half, making sure that that's positioned for the next job. So, right, I do more than just that, and I want people to make their own decisions at every point. But I don't see myself as a resume writer. I see myself as a coach and a partner on their
An advisor, strategic advisor.
right. And if they don't agree or if they don't think that I'm adding value that way, that's fine too. But here I am, and this is what I'm going to do.
So we're kind of getting close to the end here. I wanted to kind of hit some quick rapid fire questions. And I know you don't play golf, but
Yeah, I love golf courses.
but number one, what's your favorite golf course you've been on?
Well, I mean, Augusta would have to be. I've been to the Masters several times, 3 or 4. Is it Berkman's? Berkman's, right? We even got to have that experience one of the times. Gosh, that day is just like nothing else. So that's my favorite. But there was one year where Ryan and I just took like the golf season and we went to like 5 of the we were like everywhere. We were like Pinehurst, Augusta. I don't know. I'm not a golfer, so I don't remember all the places, but it was like such a fabulous year. We were having the best time. I love watching golf. I love watching it in person. I mean, seeing these athletes. I've been an athlete my whole life. And I mean, Ryan, is a golfer. He watches the golf, but just like the athleticism that goes into it. I have no hand-eye coordination. So it's just like amazing to me that people can even hit the ball like that. But yeah, I'd have to say Augusta. I'm sure lots of people would say that, but it's just like incredible experience.
What's the funniest thing you've ever seen on a golf course?
Hmm.
That can be on public or that can be on the public air.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, can I say this? I have a couple funny things. I'm not sure if I can say them or not. Let's just say when you have these are stories. This is not something I've seen, but these are like right. Like, well, the funniest thing is not my own story, but it's something that happened with Ryan. And let's just say if you have cabins on property, you never know what you're going to find under the sprinkler heads in the morning, like on the course.
We'll keep the conversation going.
Yeah. Okay.
Where can people find you? They're If they're interested in some of the things that you talked about here today, where can they find you? They want to connect.
I mean, that's such an interesting question because like I said, I don't advertise, so I don't even have a website. Jacqueline at SeverιτConsulting.com. I mean, that's my email. We can put like my phone number attached to this, but literally I get emails and phone calls from word of mouth. And I don't have a website. So people on LinkedIn, like I'm on LinkedIn, and then you can link up with me there. But yeah, my business just keeps going without a lot of formal marketing of myself.
Well, good for you. That's the best place to be. So I appreciate you jumping on here today, giving some really cool insight, different perspective insight, not just on career development, but a little bit behind the scenes of industry conversation, because I'm sure it'll resonate with a lot of people. So I appreciate taking some time.
Well, thank you. It's fun because you understand. You've been a superintendent yourself, and so that's always an interesting position because a lot of people do not understand our home life very well. Yeah, so it's fun for me too. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Leadership on the Links. For more leadership insights and industry expertise, connect with us at bloomgolfpartners.com or follow us on social media sites LinkedIn and Instagram. If you enjoyed this episode of Leadership on the Links, we'd be thrilled if you'd leave a review or share it with someone who you know would get some value. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to stay updated. Thanks for joining us today.